on today's episode, we had Matthew come on. Man, we went down some rabbit holes on this podcast. Um, I learned a lot out of this podcast as well. I've re-listened to it. Probably going to re-listen to it again, to be honest, because there's so many different things that I could get out of it, and that. But yeah, there's so many things we went down, and this is why I highly suggest to go check out Matthew's work. He's got many different modalities that I guess is so helpful, and it's like it resonates with me a lot because I'm pretty much the same as well. So yeah, highly suggest. I'll link up all this stuff down in the bio below as well. And just before we jump in today, also now I am offering Reiki and Access bars in person up on the Sunshine Coast. So if you are interested, head over to my website. All the details and stuff are there. And also I do have a bunch of online stuff as well. Like I do got a mindset session as well where we can dive deep into different things and also help to create emotional freedom, and also as well too doing breath work and meditation stuff if you feel the calling to do a session with that as well. If you want to check it all out, just head over to my website or just send us a DM on all my social medias. And yeah, I think that's it for today, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and let's dive in. Right, welcome to the show, man. How are you today?
Amazing. Thank you for inviting me.
More than welcome, man. Well, we had a great chat as we are just speaking about a Cody's event, and a lot of stuff came out of it. So that's why I've invited you to get this on record and share it to the world, because I think there'll be some juicy bits out of it and that.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's going to be some takeaways for people for sure. I'm just as excited as hopefully the potential viewers are of what's going to come from this.
Yeah, definitely, bro. But yeah, okay, I reckon, yeah, let's start off, man. So because you've got a bunch of different modalities, which I reckon is cool that you offer to the table, which I we find people and we have one or two, but you have this big, bucket full, which I think is really cool. And it's something that I resonated with a lot because it's I feel resonance with that. So, where did this journey kind of start for you? And then we'll work and break down pillars from there.
So I don't want to share too much about me, and I want to give more value to the audience as well.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make this nice and succinct.
Mm-hmm.
I basically outsourced a lot of my favorable qualities in a relationship that I had that was 5 years. Yeah. And there was outsourcing, there was trauma bonding, there was role mates, and there was codependency. So I played all of that out to its extreme. And then I moved from Brisbane to Perth. And there was this pivotal moment where felt like Robert Fawkes' The Road Less Traveled By, this cool poem where there was literally just two paths I could take, and it was love or purpose. And I chose love, and then moved in with my partner at the time of 4.5 years. And in moving into this new property, she then got with our new roommate. And then my reality just kind of went, and I had a breakdown to have a breakthrough. So, and that's, for me, I think the resonance of today, or what I'm picking up in the undercurrents, is that element of retraction and sitting in darkness and sitting in the depth of the void, to rebirth oneself into something amazing, like a chrysalis, into rebirthing myself into the grandest vision of the greatest version of my future self. And at the time, I had no fucking idea what that meant. That was just me completely invested in a relationship, yeah, and having done none of this work. So I then spent 2 to 3 years doing personal development work to bring in self-love. And then a string of modalities sort of, I would say, caught up to me. I would say I remembered them, and not that I learnt them, more that I membered. And I could probably go quite deep into that piece when speaking into Egyptian lineages and Hermetic principles, because
yeah, let's go there, man, because that's something that's been coming up for me lately as well. So
All right, this is
Happy
about to
to.
get fun. All right.
Yeah, right, let's do it.
So there was this premise, right?
Mm.
That have you heard of Isis? She's like the goddess mother. Yeah. So Isis and Osiris, they were brother and sister, and they were also lovers. Okay. And then there was Set, who was Osiris's brother, and he was married to someone called, it's spelt Nephthys, but I think it's pronounced Nephthys. Yeah, that's just the context. Set became really jealous of Osiris and dismembered him and spread his body all across the world. And Isis and Nephthys pieced him back together, but they couldn't find his penis. That was the one thing that was missing. So they brought in the help of Thoth, and that's kind of who I resonate most with. He's the god of wisdom and communication. And he forged an amazing gold penis for Osiris, and he came back to life. Okay. And then they had the baby Horus, and that's Jesus. So the picture of Isis holding Horus is Jesus Christ holding Mary. So the whole piece of the lineage is that Osiris was remembered. Yeah, and the whole premise is he taught people the temple arts and how to become immortal. So anyone that you would see holding an ankh, and I wish I could put a picture of that up right now, but it's kind of like the
visualizing it. Yeah.
Yeah, the loop with at the top with two horizontal lines and then a vertical one straight down. Yeah, and that represents the energetic body. Similarly, if anyone was holding that, they became immortal. And when I say immortal, I don't mean they didn't die or reincarnate. I mean they stopped forgetting their past lives. So there was no gap. What tends to happen with us, we're reborn into a different incarnation in my belief, but then we've forgotten. So then, yeah, I've luckily enough remembered at 27 or 25 at the time, but I could have not waited 25 years if I had been more devoted to the teachings, let's say. So the whole piece of that there is I'm remembering sort of who I am.
Yeah, man, I definitely resonate with that a lot. So it's something that I've just recently been going through as well, is that I've started to jump into the modalities of energy healing, which has been like a huge calling for me for the last like couple of years, and I've been kind of denying it because I've been trying to stick with super like sciencey based, and then I've realized I'm like, this is just not working like for me as like on a soul level. And then as soon as I started to start getting into these modalities, things just started falling into place straight away, and all this remembering stuff started to come through. Like even last week I was learning access bars, and when I was getting my bars done to me, a lot of the signs of the pyramid started to come through, and of like the energy sources through that, and remembering I guess back in those times as well was like such a thing that came up through that. And then funny enough, like probably about a year ago actually now, is that I had like a healing ceremony, and then I had this memory drop in that I was in Egypt hunting in a forest, this like I don't know how, back a while ago, and I remember hunting this deer in this forest, and then some reason what the thought that came into it is like you're a wizard, kind of like energy words and all this kind of stuff, and helping to I guess unite this world, like the messages that came through.
Amazing. Yeah, like for me it's either a memory or it's a past life remembrance, or it's like a lesson, and I think all of it is useful. And if someone was to believe in this concept of the Akashic records being like this giant library of all information ever stored, ever housed, there's this concept of any thought I've ever had is unoriginal, which makes me laugh. And I like that one a lot, because then you're just not that important, but then you have to be because of that, because you're unimportance creates your importance.
Yep.
So like any thought that you've ever had either will be created by you now because you've had it so fucking grounded in, or not by someone else in the future. And what dropped in your share was that I might be projecting now, so you can choose to accept this or reject this.
Yep.
Which is fun, live.
Yeah. It's the best bit about this.
I reckon, and this is what I'm sensing, this is just intuition, what I'm sensing is that your sciencey modalities actually improved after jumping into the energy work.
Yep.
And what's funny about that is this kind of figure 8 symbol, the infinity symbol, and my business coach Jessica Ann has this on the main page of her website, and it's just dancing between the spiritual and the material. So yeah, I don't like to polarize, but I like to speak into polarization, meaning that, how do I word this in a really nice, succinct way? I want both, and I want clients that are both. And I don't want people on the outset rejecting anything or any ideas, because I could have, and probably did, polarize maybe 75% of your audience by giving these very like intense, strong-willed beliefs around Egypt. And if someone doesn't believe that, that could be enough for them to leave, right? But maybe by being curious and delving into that, there's more space that opens up through that curiosity. Like what my journey has been, being spiritual and poor. Having, all good?
Yeah, all good. You cut out a little bit there.
All right. Yeah. So I spent a lot of time being spiritual and poor and not building in enough systems and structures. Yeah. So I would tend to find that be a reflection in my clients too, the people that were exclusively spiritual but didn't have any money to pay me, versus I wasn't attracting any of the people that had tons of money, even though there's a pandemic going on. They've got a lot of money, yeah, but they're not willing to open their hearts.
And I love how you said it, because it is about combining both of these worlds together, as much as some people think it's that. And it's also, as you're saying, it's like, as soon as you open these doors, opportunities appear. Like, more doors you open, the more opportunities come, the more that, I guess, I would just say, like, learning about yourself / remembering about yourself from all these past lives when you open up these doors, instead of like being closed off to this stuff. It's like, once you open up, the possibilities come endless, and then the more that you can give to humanity as well.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing in your words, in my interpretation, is this idea of service and being of service during this time. And it's a question for me as well, having just launched my website 3 days ago. I'm like, how can I be of more service? And how in my marketing can I, how can I frame what I do to impact more people? And it's interesting, because for me, sometimes it's not working with more people, it's working like deeper with one. And then that person, having integrated all of that learning, may then help another 1,000 people, because they went really damn deep, and across their lifetime, they've now, like, they're really solid in themselves and in that sense of self. So yeah, sometimes I want to move faster and I get frustrated in that I'm not helping enough people, or I'm not speaking on a big enough scale and affecting the masses, I guess.
Yeah, I resonate with that a lot too, because it's something that I jump between a lot. It's like, should I do more people or just get really in depth? But that calling to be more in depth with people is like more that thing that I resonate with a lot, because it's, I guess, with my own values and stuff, that I love to get deep with people and not just have this like massive thing of like a lot of people. Is that if, as you're saying, so you get really in depth with that one person, the impact kind of like, it keeps spreading out. They help 10 people, you help 10 people, they help another 10 people, they help another 10 people, etc., etc. Even if it is not in a cliency base, like friends and family, like that impact ripples out kind of thing. And I think that's like the most thing with like looking at service and impact, is like, even if it's just one person, that's going to have a huge ripple effect than doing no one at all.
Can I ask a weird question?
Yeah, go for it, man.
What are your thoughts of money?
Thoughts of money.
Yeah, it's just a funny thought because other civilizations, and I don't probably, is it civilizations probably not the right word, more like other timelines, other beings, other realms wouldn't use money as their currency, right? They would just instantly manifest stuff. They'd think about something without any thoughts or blockages in the way, and they'd have it, right? But we're in a sort of a system where that's required. And when I've seen people being in shadow around money, and even myself, I see that it can be locked into the first energy center, if you want to be more sciencey, or chakra, if you want to go spiritual, babies. Yeah. And that's like safety and stability. So if you really want to rock someone, give them like a $5,000 bill from the government, right? Like, but for maybe what would that be for nowadays, like driving outside of the LGA or whatever the fuck's happening. But like, watch someone that's really stable go and just pivot when there's a money issue, right? And money's not necessarily abundance, which is, for me, has become a buzzword. I like the word sustainability, and that's not the same as wealth. So how does it work for you, and does it afford you more freedom?
I think I'm actually relearning the word freedom within myself as well, because looking at the structures and that, because the way they look at old societies and that is like money would, like, we didn't have money, it's more of an energy exchange. And that's the way I look at money, is it's an energy exchange of something. But then in like looking at freedom terms, I've kind of find when you have some, like, you get your safety needs met, the bottom line, so you got food, shelter and all that, freedom really comes into, it's inside, and it's not really from the outside, because it's like creating that emotional freedom and freedom from circumstance. Because like at the end of the day is that you don't have control of what's going to happen on the outside, but you have more control of what's going to happen on the inside. And yes, we all have preferences at the end of the day, but then you can still have that freedom within, even though what's happening out there. And that gives you more freedom of choice of which way you can go to deal with the circumstances. So then you're not in a state of fear when it comes to dealing with it.
And in your opinion, you said the word, so I just want to say the words back to you. What's happening out there? What do you think based on your model of the world? Because my perception is my perception, right? And so is yours. Like, what if there's an idea that this could be an illusion, or this could be real, or both? What's happening for you anyway?
For me
in the world, like, what the fuck's happening?
Man, I got a lot of beliefs around this. So, and plus with this going on YouTube and that, so I'm going to be careful what I say.
Sure.
So I really think it is my complete understanding of it and the amount of downloads I've been getting over it. We're seeing the deconstruction of these old systems, right? And when if you look at old, like back in time in history, when things started to fall apart, is that they try to control a lot more. They try to, bring in a lot more power and all this kind of stuff. So then it doesn't get that a chance to flip into something new. And the way that I really look at it, like even a deeper level, we're going through a birth canal, which is normally, yucky, it's dark, all this, all the stuff that comes with giving birth. And then at the end of it, the end of birth is that you get something new and beautiful. And that's what we're going through. It's like we're going through a new creation of what's, I guess, into the new world and new system that's going to be created.
Amazing. And where do you see it going? Or where do you hope it would go? Like, do you now have downloads of like, boom, what I see is, and that's okay if you don't, because this stage can be characterized with the unknown, right?
Yeah. The only one that I can really speculate is I'm not too sure which way it's going to go, but it depends on my theory is it depends on how many people start healing their own emotional traumas of which way we'll go with it all. But we're going to go into a system that's going to be more for, created by the people for the people, instead of having, a hierarchy system kind of thing. So like if you're on the bottom, you still get a say, but it's not going to be like the hierarchy system we have at the moment. It's going to be everyone that can have a play with, what the choices for the people are going to be.
Amazing. Something's dropped in. It's been what's happening with actually my sister. And I don't mind sharing this, and I don't think she would either. Like, I did some energy healing work, and a lot of my work is around energetic hygiene or psychic safety, and cleaning up my behavior, or cleaning up my shadows, or cutting cords to past relationships that somewhat feel icky. I sort of, how do I explain it? I clear out entities or lower life forms or negative energy, or black stuck, icky, gooey beliefs, which all kind of look the same visually if you can use your vision to peer into this stuff, and a lot of that can just be commanding these lower life forms or whatever, or negative energies that tend to, if we look at like David R. Hawkins' map or scale of consciousness, that sit in the lower, denser frequencies, just the heart being the halfway point, or the alchemizer in many traditions, we sort of bring these lower energies up to the heart, and then they can't exist anymore. And it's somewhat just this commanding process of being like, leave now or be transmuted into love. So and then it's just creating a bit of safety in your system. This is the piece. If a lot of people now are operating from fear, and that may be a frequency that's easy to latch onto, and the news is propagating that feeling, or our thoughts are, how would you improve your mental health during this time, or someone else's? If they weren't in this work and they didn't want to go get an energy healing and have this fear taken out of them, how do you think people could empower themselves?
My thing is sitting back and reflecting on, looking on how, I guess, who they are and where the world is going. And, when you have that reflection, you kind of can understand where, I guess, your powers are. And also actually doing a lot more grounding work that just came through then as well. And turning off the TV, the biggest one, and having conversations with other people and asking questions, even if someone's not has the same belief system as you, and just asking questions and asking why. And like, have you ever thought of it this way? Have you put yourself in their shoes? And even myself, by having these conversations, I realize even if we have two composing belief systems, that we find common ground in the middle. And it's also, I guess, listening to the unconscious. So it's not actually what they're saying, but how they're saying it, and I guess, the emotions and the body language from it. Because a lot of the time in the unconscious, we're kind of saying the same things, but expressed differently.
So very metaphorical type question. What's happening in this conversation that's unspoken? What's happening in the undercurrents, do you think?
Is a good question. And that is something that I feel really on the spot with, because nothing's actually come through with this one. So
Curious.
Yeah,
I like what you said about grounding. What are grounding practices?
so a lot of my type of grounding practices I use, I'll speak from that, is like even just walking barefoot on the ground, pretty much, or just going for a walk in nature as well. Because in nature, which is something I speak into a lot, is that nature, dissolves your ego and makes your problems seem smaller than what they actually are. So when you take yourself and put yourself back into an environment that humans thrived in, and you feel connected, that everything just kind of dissolves. It's like, oh, okay, these problems that we have externally happening aren't as big as what we actually make them out to be, because we attach our identity to them.
Interesting. I looked at your Instagram. I think it was a video today, but I didn't get a chance to listen to the video. But I saw the title. It was talking about social anxiety. Without putting myself in a box, sometimes I've felt like I've been somewhat more of an introvert.
Yep.
And that large crowds can feel intimidating. And it's weird because then I'll speak on stages too. Just to mix it up.
I fully understand. I do the same thing too, man. I'm like putting myself in a box. I'm more introverted as well. I tend to like spend more time by myself in that.
What did that post say? If you can remember, if it's fresh, what was your post? How was it useful for someone? The social anxiety post.
So I was looking when I did that video a couple of weeks ago. So I was talking into how I dealt with my own social anxieties, and this is something that I didn't mention in the video, is that because I'm so sensitive to people's energies, is that sometimes I'll get in social anxiety, and that's why I tend to be more introverted. And I spoke this in the videos, like I'll try and hang out with people that generally shut off that part of my brain because we energetically match. But then I always sometimes put myself in those positions where I get in social anxiety. So then it helps me to deal with it in that moment. So then I don't, I guess, tremble or don't talk to that person. So then it can still build some kind of connection as well.
That's so weird that you said that. Now that I think about it, probably the reason that it's triggering me is that person doesn't have any energetic hygiene practices, probably, and then it's a boundary for me because their energy might start trying to attach and latch onto mine. So that would be intimidating for me because I'm trying to talk to someone and I don't want to be fighting up other people's energy. I never thought of it that way, that like there could just be a room of like 20 entities and that's funny. And I might just want to talk to 3 people that I really vibe with, that are actually like really grounded in themselves, but not rejecting others too. And like judging them for where they're at. Cause there was moments where I didn't even know what any of this stuff was. I was just living my life, right? I was just walking around and then I'd go to another room and then I spend no time inward or meditating. And
yeah, because I would question, because this is what another thing with my journey, because it took me so long to figure this out, because some people I'd be vibing with so much and I'd be in such a good mood, and then other people, they'll be lovely and nice people, but as soon as I hang out with them, I'll be in a dark, non-talkative mood, and everyone thought I was upset. I'm like, I'm not upset, I just don't feel the vibe. When did, I guess, you as a person find out with that within yourself?
So rephrase that for me. I really like the question. When did I find out what specifically?
So when did you find out, I guess, that you're highly sensitive to people's energies?
The more energy work I've done, removing negative energies, because then I know what a negative energy feels like.
Yep.
And that's, again, not a judgment. Which is challenging to not put that in a box. Like, it's not good energy and bad energy. It's just energy, but it's suppressed energy. It's energy that hasn't had space to move. So for me, a lot of dis-ease is coming from people not expressing and they're repressing. Yeah. So it's like, it's just stuck energy that wants to move. And that could be cancerous cells. You know what I mean? Like for me, most of the people around me that have dis-ease are trying to stay stuck. And they've got moving cells. So I like one thing I really like is the law of vibration means that everything moves always. So good luck trying to stay still, you idiot. like you know what I mean? Like I know that person might not know that likes living in their little cocoon in a rut and following their hamster wheel system, but you'll probably form a disease. So that's challenging because you probably don't want to die, you know what I mean? So for me, like, you go and do a healing, you won't have that cancer anymore. And that's an unpopular opinion. I'm not going to go into COVID right now, but let's like for disease, I'll go quite broadly there. I think your energetic body needs some work, or just release some emotions, buddy,
Well, that's what, when you're talking to cancer and that, metabolic health, that's what, the causes of cancer is actually stress and, tight and, you know, stiff stress on the body. And when you think of it, as children, like, we're not taught how to express and let things move. Like, we do it naturally, but then our parents teach us to, like, stiffen up. You got to be good behavior all the time and all that stuff. And when a kid's having a tantrum, all he's really doing is expressing and letting go of this energy in his body. And then normally after he's had that tantrum, he's laughing, he's good again, he's going out and play. But as, you know, adults, we get taught to be like, you know, over time we get taught to feel like this. And that since we, you know, have this breaking point, we're like there for ages because we don't express that energy straight away or like feel into it.
And it's a choice. That's the challenging thing that I learned from studying NLP. And I'm not even master prac level yet. I don't know what the fuck's going to happen once that drops in. But like
some bombshells.
Yeah, especially with quantum linguistics. It's just a wild ride. I'm just like, but and I forgot. I just got excited. I just forgot what I was going to say, and that's okay. Yeah, there's a lot that's about to still to come, and that will drop into. There's two threads that wanted to be pulled, and I'm gonna put them back up here and let them unravel.
Yeah.
Maybe you got another question for me, and I might remember.
Yeah, because we're talking into.
I didn't even answer your first question. This is so what I'm like. I'm like. You're like, hey Matt, why did you do multiple modalities? Didn't answer. Good question. Like, I formed 2 new ones just creating my website. And a new one dropped in the day I was meant to release. I'm like, this is making release challenging. I've got to make a new page. How much does it cost? Fuck, now I need a scheduling link on that one. Multiple modalities. Wow. Something's just shot off in my brain, and it's gone into the void. It just turned off. It's gone into silence in the void.
Yeah, I feel that, man.
I don't know. I don't like to be limited. That's by one thing. It started for me with, I did a film degree. Yeah. And that was 3 years. And then that transitioned into someone asking me, hey, do you want to do photos? And I'm like, not really. can we make them move a bit? And then that's a video, you know what I mean? Can we make those stills moving? And they're like, no, I want photos for my brand and my website. I'll give you something called the spiral.
Oh, have you done?
Yeah. So then that was my first initiation with Danny. That, like, he was my first conscious friend or client, and he's like, hey, do you want kinesiology, muscle testing in a modality for 8 weeks, moving up the chakras for some photos and filming a course? And I was like, yeah, I'll do that. Had no idea what it was. And I remember doing session 1, and I'm just sitting there, and it was the root, now that we're talking about that. And that was like, level 1. And we were at my friend Graham's avocado farm, and his dad had just finished work, and he's just sitting there like in the other armchair watching me in my first session. I'm like, that's kind of weird. This session's kind of weird. I don't know what's happening. It was and I think we did root the same day that we did the photo shoot, and then all the photos came out really good, and I'd never had any photography training, and I'm like, wow, I captured his energetic body very well. And then I was just curious as how I could integrate masculine and feminine energies in somewhat of a rite of passage during photo shoots. So then I didn't find out until a year and a half later. The payoff of that was I created a masculine and feminine integration course with Danny, which then became my prerequisite for a photo shoot with me. And it was like, what the fuck? How did I plan that so well? So people learned like how not to relate from wounding, or they learn about their inner energies and archetypes. And ever since learning this, I've just been fascinated about like, what's an archetype? What's an inner energy? What's the collective unconscious? What's this thing we identify with to understand ourselves better? Yeah. And then NLP came in a little bit after that, and I was so fucking resistant to NLP, mainly because I was in victim. And then that means I have to take full responsibility. So that's why I didn't want to do that for ages. And then that drops in, and I think so many things opened up from there. Like, so it went from just photos and to photos and branding, because then I identified a need. And then it went NLP coaching, and the biggest dragon to slay for me in my life was sex, or is still sex. And my past life remembrance has me as this sex magic practitioner, integrating masculine and feminine energies up and down the body system. So I'm like, no wonder that's been my remembrance, like my biggest challenge. It felt like trials, hasn't felt joyous. Like, you know, I'm sure I'm projecting, but you'll look backwards and be like, yeah, I can remember all these amazing sexual experiences and lovers that I've had. I'm just like, I look back and I'm like, fuck, that was traumatic. Like, and now
I relate to that a lot.
Yeah.
I sit back and I'm like, man, I was really in my wound a lot of that time.
Right? Yeah. And I'm just like, man, I can't wait for the experience that come from this new integration of this energy. Yeah. Like where I'm actually moving from health and from balance and from self-love. And what I still tend to find is I'm having troubles just like relating with healthy, available people, because there's not that polarity that comes from the chaoticness of relying on the other person's like how do I explain this easier? Basically unavailability. Unavailability has been my peak turn on in my life, I would say. And now when people are here and present and ready, I'm finding every excuse not to have sex. And then I'll just go inward for days at a time and just meditate again and find an excuse not to open up my heart, you know?
Yeah. Oh man, I relate to that on so many levels.
Yeah, I don't know why that wanted to be shared, but yeah. Even for me, who's a somatic sexologist right now, is like a 10K training and offers this in sessions. I'm still learning and figuring out like how to have ideal relationships where, yeah, I feel fully empowered in all areas of my life. I'd like more financial stability. I'd like more stability. And my Saturn return's about to kick me up the fucking ass in about 1 to 2 years as well. And like the disciplinarian will just come and go like, Matt, you asshole. Look back at all the things you've created in your life. Saturn being the teacher and the masculine discipline. It's like, what have you created? Well, yeah, great. Good job. And at that point, lots of people buy like houses and cars and start families and create new businesses and create things, right? So they can feel proud of their legacy, versus Uranus return, which is people's midlife crisis, which is all emotional and dreamy, and people more likely go and have a freak out and buy a car. But yeah, my Saturn return's coming soon, and the way my astrology works is what I've got to do in this lifetime is create like new spiritual ways of being of maximum service. Last lifetime, I nailed it. I nailed creation of money last lifetime. And this one, it's fucking hard. And I don't know why it's so hard. And I don't know what, and that's why I was asking about money, because I was wondering if you had more empowering beliefs, or maybe that's just in integrity with you in this lifetime right now, and it's in your chart, because that's like my struggle. I'm like, how do I create this spiritual need for wisdom and service, and a unique way to create that? So much so that I feel that I'll be creating a healing modality.
Yeah, I just thought that too.
And then surely then maybe it's ideally monetized as well. But yeah, it's not the focus. Like right now, I don't like, that's a lot of words, but does anything drop in after saying all that shit?
I do resonate with this, and this is actually a conversation that I had with someone, a reader, a couple of months ago, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of this work is like we're in creation stage for this kind of work that we're all doing, and then I guess that you're tapping into, that I'm tapping into now as well, is that we're in this creation phase. So then once the rest of the world's ready, this is when the monetary stuff will start coming through. And this is like, even when I explained like before with this state of the world that we're like in at the moment, that eventually once we start getting into like, I guess, these new systems, this is when the monetary stuff will start coming to us, because a lot of people won't rely on the old systems and they're looking for new systems to jump into.
Mm.
So it's like this big, game in creation, but also applying a little bit of patience in the same aspect as well.
I feel you. I'm just, yeah, I tend to be impatient. So that's my challenge now.
I think we all are a little bit. And this is
Yeah.
something I've been really sitting with my like inner child stuff. It's like you can, instead of trying to force from creation, this, create from flow. And then things will start slowly, chopping and, falling in place for me, as like, especially over the last say month, like things have just really started to foundation, and things just that I wasn't expecting at all to fall into my life. It just fell in, kind of thing. And things that I was kind of expecting, I guess, later on too.
Amazing. Are any of those things worth sharing, or you feel comfortable sharing, or not for now?
Not for now.
Perfect.
Later on. Yeah.
Amazing.
Got a few creations that are coming up. So yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. But yeah, man, I guess I'd like to tap into the feminine masculine energy, because we all have both in that. And what are some of the pillars that I guess you help with people to find that balance with the two energies, or in that?
Absolutely. All right. So what I found for me personally, using I statements and I and me, this is a big download, which is cool.
I'm loving this. I was thinking of like, yeah, just been coming through.
So I was in my light masculine, nice guy, but polarized in my light masculine, which meant numb to my feelings. The white knight that would come in and heal and save all my partners, and literally so out of balance that led to premature ejaculation, or that can manifest as erectile dysfunction too, because we're so disempowered towards the opposite counterpart of polarity, meaning that person I would call in would be over emotional, would be in her seductress and her manipulation. Like in balance, the dark feminine would be, she would be, I'm using heteronormative terms here. I've mainly dated women, but I don't mind if you don't identify with those words. So they would, if they were in balance, it would be the void. It would be the creatrix. It would be basically what society's doing right now, just sort of sitting in nothing to create new things, like the energy of, in numerology, of ace or one, just like before polarities manifested, and then dualities too in numerology, and three is actually creation, whereas like one is this initial ideation, and I feel like we're in one at the moment in society. But I called in these particular women and I disempowered myself. So nice guys don't want to be found out for ever being wrong for anything, because the worst thing ever is to be found out that they're a fraud, which means they have to call themselves out on their bullshit, and they never will. So that's where narcissism, gaslighting, and swapping the poles works, because then they swap to the other side, to their unhealthy dark feminine, which is the gaslighting, the narcissism, and the emotional manipulation that happens there. So that's the swap. That's one pole. Light masculine, dark femme. Played that out many times, still do. Still like sexy, manipulative, like seductress women who are hot. Like can't deny it. Like I like to be seduced. So poor me and my relating sometimes. That's one. So how would I help those men? If it was a man, I would help him develop boundaries. I would help him to connect to his wants, needs, and desires, so he can actually ask for what the fuck he wants and needs and requires to relate. I'd allow him to, he's already probably nice and in his heart, like the light masculine in full presence. It is present, it's structure, it's discipline, would be him just like the energy of Jesus Christ, just all loving and this heart that emanates forever. Yeah. Out of balance at the top is under-boundaried, and down the bottom of this scale. And I can provide this map so you could like look at this as I'm explaining it, because it's a bit hard. I'm visualizing a map that I've created with all the names and numbers. But yeah, under-boundaried up the top and depth down the bottom, but also crosses boundaries. So the dark feminine out of balance emotionally crosses boundaries, and the dark masculine physically crosses boundaries. So what happens here is an under-boundaried mother or maiden, receptive, surrendered, nice, pixie-like energy, Aphrodite over here, and then the dark masculine that physically crosses boundaries. And he just comes along and it's like, fuck your weak boundaries. I am stronger than your weak boundaries. So maybe I was in high school and there'd be this really nice blonde nymph-like woman, and I'm like, oh, I'm attracted to you, but I'm too nice, right? She's not going to go for me because I'm nice. There's this bad guy who they're polarizing through polarity. You can tell he's a bit into drugs. He's got tattoos. He bit of a dick, just treating her like a bit of a dick. And it's like, why the fuck is she going for him? Because she can't say no, because she doesn't know what a boundary is. And he crosses them, so it's a great match because they need each other. They're role mates. They're required. I'm up here. I can't feel my emotions. She feels all of them, or I feel all of hers for her because she's got heaps of them. So I'll just fucking hold them as a holder. I'll just have like a basket of her emotions up here, and then I'll just break and snap, and then become emotionally penetrative. So my journey was I could never step into the most polarized and hated energy in society, which is the dark masculine. Yeah, because out of balance, that's the energy of rape and war and pillaging and sexual assault. So imagine the most rapey, pillaging energy ever. It's like Genghis Khan, just fucking decimating shit. Yeah, I couldn't be that because I was scared to be that, because I never wanted to hurt women, because I was brought up with women in society, like my mum and then all my female teachers, and I can't hurt them. So then I can never take for my pleasure. So then I have a useless dick. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah. So it's like, I've got to start to cultivate all these four energies and archetypes and qualities and bring them into my heart, because love's in the center and balance is the center of all of those. So how I show up for my mum and my dad might be different. Like if, mum, I'm really caring, and then dad, I'll fall into line because he'll be in his dark masculine, and I'll just be this little receptive boy, like even light feminine, that just holds his hand and just like does what he says. Yeah. So imagine any courtroom drama ever. Yeah, we've got the victim, we've got the perpetrator, and we've got the judge, who's literally judging the man in guilt for being guilty for being a perpetrator to the victim, which is just the drama. It's just the drama triangle. It's just, victim, rescuer, perpetrator, and we just move between the points. So I was too afraid to integrate my predator. So a lot of the work I'm doing is helping men that have no predator integrate theirs, or those that are in their leaky predator bring some heart and receptivity and slowness and stillness in. Because the men that are always going to work and always providing and always in structure and always penetrative, they can't ever like take the weight off their shoulders. They have no feminine receptivity, because feminine, that means you're gay. Society means that you're gay if you're feminine. So you're not going to have a bath or a sauna or an ice bath or breathe or meditate. Yeah. You can never do that, because then you're gay, and your mates down at the pub who are also numbing wouldn't do that either. So a lot of my work there's a lot of things to it, but primarily I want to stop the next round of rapists, basically, because every female client I work with in my somatic sexology sessions has been raped, quite simply. I don't know a woman that I've worked with that hasn't been sexually assaulted. And that definition for me extends as far as has been spoken down to by a man. So see myself, I don't know how, but I see myself, and I've always seen myself speaking in schools to these young ones to help them integrate their healthy rite of passage, so that we don't have to have the next generation of leaky predator rapists that think their sexual exploration is helping anyone. And it's not, because we're not being taught about how the women's anatomy or pleasure anatomy is inherently linked to their hearts. We're not just learning about pictures where dicks go in them. You know what I mean? It's like we're installing trauma in our women, and it's my job to take the trauma out. So I'd like to not be at the back end. I'd like to cut it off at the start, so I don't have to do so much energy healing every second day on every human that's really struggled from us men with, kind of being shit. So a lot of my work is somewhat just apologizing, or being, I might even take on the qualities of their disgusting ex, and then have her share and project and close the trauma loops that were pervading her life from stopping her moving forward. So I tend to just run around pretending to be other people like an alchemist.
And I loved what you explained then, because it's like I've seen all of the ends of the spectrum, especially like a lot of my male mates. Like I tend to be more on the light masculine, and then I do have mates in like the more, dark masculine and thing. And like, because I'm generally more in my light, always in my light kind of thing, or now I'm starting to integrate more different types of masculine. It's that when I was more in my light, I found that super intimidating to be around. And then also, like, as you're saying, I grew up in a female only household. So I do know what it's like to, see what happens when a man's in that kind of dark masculine. And I like how you brought up, it's like, it is crazy how many women have been sexually assaulted too. And like those stats are insane. And it's like, as men, we got to really learn to, as you're saying, it's like find these harmonies around these things. So then, because women do want to connect from their heart space, the emotions be felt in that, instead of us just thinking about pleasure straight away.
And needing our feminine receptivity from the woman during sex is the only time we drop into it, right? But then also not being in the light masculine quality of being present during the sexual experience. So a somatic session with me in the modality of self-pleasure that I'm initiated in is slowing down the body to create new neural pathways around pleasure. So if people's nervous systems are fully adrenalized with cortisol and caffeine and everything else that keeps us in hustle and moving, like the energy of, like, if you've seen The Grinch, just that big giant monkey with cymbals, just doing that on his head. That's how, for me, society feels always. It just feels like a bull in a china shop, just running and never stops and just shatters shit. And it'd be nice if we could literally just go collectively and all have a goddess breath together, the goddess breath, like and let out a sound on the exhale. But equally, if we did that, then we're bringing in breath and sound, and then we bring in a bit of movement of like you were saying, of the toddler or the swan that just shakes its feathers to get the stress off, or the dog that's just like, and then touch. and bringing in the different elements in touch, like air, water, fire. I can't even remember the elements. This is great. I'm just on a weird roll. Earth. I guess that's where I'm lacking in my life too. That I'm desiring more earth, more grounding. But yeah, it's like bringing all these elements in during a session and taking the agenda and the goal out of pleasure. So a self-pleasure session might look like, I don't know if this is audio and visual, but it might be quite boring if it's not. It's just like, yeah, you might be.
Yeah, this is.
Yeah, just.
Well, that is a lot of the self-pleasure practices. Is like, you know, touching yourself. You're like getting comfortable with touching like yourself in certain bits, because that's something we're not as taught as children. If you touch yourself, it's all gross and icky, and then we get all the way to adulthood and then we have sex and the whole body just goes into panic mode because we taught that this stuff is not good for us, or it's icky, gross, and all this other stuff. But in actual fact, it's none of what we get taught about.
Yeah, and just bring in different qualities of touch like that. The difference between grounding earth touch, like fire being slapping, air being that we barely touch the skin, and water being like moving up a channel or a pathway because it's just flowing. Yeah, like if we're just to integrate that breath, sound, movement, touch, and then awareness of where the touch is moving, then we begin to connect to the energy of desire. And when I say desire, I don't mean lust. There's a key distinction there. I don't mean like I want to fuck everything in like this archetype of the fuck boy, you know, like I just want to penetrate the world and everything before I integrate like the lover or the magician, or, you know, like that's a great phase to be in. If we don't integrate the fuck boy, then we can't be penetrative. And I probably have been deficient in that. Yeah, that's why I've had the issues that I've had. It's been scary being the fuckboy for me. I didn't want to hurt people.
Yeah, definitely relate to that, man.
We get to be in all the expressions that look bad. We get to be in, and that means emotions too. We get to be in anger, sadness, fear, guilt, hurt, all of them. And we get to cry as men and as women. And we get to sit there in guilt and feel it fully through, but not choose to sit in it for days or weeks or months or years, and then choose anxiety and depression as just the carryover of not feeling ourselves, you know?
Yeah, 100%, man. It's integrating that the shadow self, the darkness that we all have. And it's something that I think we're all here at this point in time to do and to transcend into this better world. Is like this is why all the shadow aspects of society is showing up at the moment as well. Take it on a little bit of different tangent, but it's showing up for us to integrate and to be with it, so then we can transcend it into more of a lighter and more of accepting of self, because we all have these dark aspects of ourselves.
Yeah, I'm going to ask a weird question, and then it leads to a cool, timely bit of wisdom that's dropped into my space recently. I've got some Oracle and Tarot cards, and I wasn't sure why the particular ones wanted to work with me that did. You know, because there's thousands of those bad boys out there now. And the difference for me is an Oracle is like a nice warm hug. It's like a microwave meal where you just put it in the microwave and press the button and it's ready. You read it and everything's great. It's done, it's complete, it's finished. Whereas tarot is more like all of the ingredients of a meal, and you've got to cut up each one, and there's so many different combinations you can create with those ingredients, and as a result it's somewhat complex and a bit complicated to learn. And then once you've read the recipe a few times, maybe you've automated it, but at the start you're just like, nah, fuck it, I'm just going to put my butter chicken in and press let's go. So the ones that have shown up for me, I've got the Thoth or the Hot tarot, because he's like the key god that I work with. But then also I've got this other Egyptian deck, and it's called the Anubis Oracle. But there's over 22 other gods and goddesses, or like deities that usually, like if you went to Egypt, they'd have their own temple, they'd have their own statue, they'd have their own like mini statues, or like dead animals in reverence to that main statue or God. And I was like, why is it Anubis? Like, why isn't it the Isis oracle, or the Osiris oracle, or the Set oracle? Because that's about shadow integration, right? It's like Set is our shadow selves. It's the adversarial ally. It's the trickster, like where we look at our shadow to transmute this stuff into light. And going deeper and working deeper with Anubis, he's the jackal-headed god that would like weigh your heart, and he's the king of the underworld, which I didn't actually realize means the king of the inner world. So the idea of inner and outer, yeah, and him being the enlightened shaman, the shaman of the enlightened heart, yeah. So he is the bringer of the way. He shines the light into the dark, and you have to work with him when you start this journey, because you're starting to work with darker energies, and you want that ally. You want that dog that's really loyal, that's by your side. Is the energy of like the coyote or it's a jackal, yeah. And that can be quite scary. Like if I just asked a regular human, like, do you like the underworld? I don't know if they'd say yes, but you know what I mean?
I definitely know what you mean.
But to work with him might just mean I'm working with my lower 3 chakras, meaning that the heart's the center point between the upper and the lower worlds. Like the heart being the 4th chakra, there's 3 below and there's 3 above. Yeah, if we go with the traditional system. So he's the halfway point, and the showing us that the deeper we go, and this is how like karmic retribution and works from my belief and understanding. Like we go through the lesson karmically from whatever we've done in past lives, and we like descend first, and then it's always followed by positive ascent, and usually a lot more beautifully than the descent was, or a longer time in the ascend. So it's like maybe I'll have a horrible weekend for 2 days, but then I'll have 4 days of this beautiful flourishing, you know. But it always happens like the pain first. So it's no surprise that I was in shitty relationships before I was in good ones, or you were in anxiety before you weren't. You know what I mean? It's like, karmically we have to descend to ascend. And for 2 years I wanted to work with the goddess. I was seeing this goddess movement happening in all the Byron Bay communities, and like being someone that works in this spiritual entrepreneurial space, or like conscious influencers, or whatever fucking word you want to use to describe humans. You know, people. We're all influencers, right, in our own lives, in our own thoughts. I'm just seeing all these similar people and similar themes come up across the board, and it's just interesting.
Yeah, it definitely is. Like that's the way, like if any breakthrough moment, you have to go through a breakdown, and that's when it's kind of in that darkness is when all that the crappy stuff that we don't generally want to learn or go through is that's where we learn the most about ourselves. I guess it's like I think Peter Holmes talks about this in his book Comedy Sex God. It's like finding the joy in going in those lows, because you find the new parts about yourself, and then plus two, like going in those lows is part of being human as well. So there's some kind of joy in the ride, because if you think of it, we're just like up here all the time, like we wouldn't have an appreciation for it. But then going down, it's like, okay, we get a new appreciation every time we go down for that, the good stuff that comes up after the going through the shit.
It'd just be a flat line otherwise, wouldn't it? It'd just be this. Our lives is just one long continuous blip. Like it's interesting, hey. Again, opposites, duality, polarity. The way that I've understood shifting out of a state is focusing on the opposite state. I know that sounds simple, but imagine if I'm in fear and I want to be in courage. I just think about all of the characteristics of courage. And then if I think about that long enough, I'll become courageous, and I vibrated my body out of fear into courage. And for me, it can be that simple, and people choose not to, because it's more comfortable to sit in the fear for a long time.
It's also that our attachment of our identity and the safety stories we have, because of like, one thing I like to talk about, so like the not good enough story. So every time we get older, we find a new story to replay that not good enough story that we got as a child. So we keep on finding a new story instead of finding an empowering story out of it. And it's something that I love to work with people, is like, just break down your story and turn it into something empowering. So it's like, break it down to the root and then let's rebuild it back up into something that can be empowering, because a lot of the time is you can't change the past, but you can change the story behind it.
That's cool. Yeah. I think people like stories as well. I think we, in all histories and traditions, like sitting around the fire and speaking stories out, especially empowering stories we can identify with.
Because we all know that we have those, when we hear those empowering stories of the superheroes and that, we know we have those little bits inside of us, but we always think it's up to someone else to do it. But at the end of the day, is we're kind of our own superhero / like villain of our own stories.
I like that. Yeah, that goes into like this concept of mirror work for me. So it's perception is projection, meaning that if I see same story, if I see an amazing speaker on a stage, the amazing qualities I see in them is what I see in myself, because it has to be present inside me to be able to identify it in another. Because if it's not, then I couldn't have seen it. And then sometimes you can't see it. And that's what I like working with people in. It sounds kind of confusing, but imagine my story where in a room of 100 people, 99 of them were unavailable. Sorry, I did the wrong thing. In a room of 100 people where 99 are available in a great match, I would choose that one that I wanted to heal that had wounding. Because I didn't have the receptors at the time to feel worthy. And even if I was looking on the street, and imagine there was a vast array of suitable matches of people that would, match up to me in a way, I wouldn't be able to see that. They're there. It's like describing something to someone with like vernacular and terms that don't land, that are just too complicated, like you speaking to me in scientific language around a niche or jargon that you've learned. It just like, it goes over the head rather than landing in that person's body. And it feels like the same metaphor for me in calling in unavailable people, or not being receptive enough to seeing someone in front of you that could be a great like romantic match. That's definitely a journey I like uncovering, because as I clear out a lot of my unconscious material, then those stories change, as you're saying, and they become empowering stories, and then I meet more empowering people, and those relationships improve over time.
Yeah, I 100% relate to that, because it's more like I've jumped into my empowering stories, and that the more, even like in friend groups and that, it's like how much they've started to shift over time when I started to step more empowering story of meeting more empowering people, all quite on like similar journeys and that. And it's just like that switch of just changing that story inside ourselves, or about ourselves, I should say.
I want to put you on the spot because I've forgotten. Do you remember the diagram that Cody put on the board in that room, where it's similar to what we were describing? There was like this breakdown point before creating a new idea. Remember it was kind of like there were lines on it. I don't know, even like he put up a lot of models. Yeah, he put up a lot of models, but there was a phase or a step or a process, right, where we must move through discomfort to move into the next step.
It's a chaos zone.
Yeah, chaos.
Yes, that's it. It's like the same. I'm like visualizing it now, so it's like you can't fit, and then the chaos on the other side. Yeah.
So how do you identify with chaos?
Chaos. Well, that's a really good question. So where I identify with chaos is generally with more opportunity. I resonate with this, even though like I've heard this before and I know this isn't true because normally the symbol for chaos is the symbol for chaos and opportunity is like the same in Chinese language, but that's not actually true. But a lot of people say that. And that's something that I resonate with chaos. When the stuff's starting to get a bit chaotic for me, yeah, I go through the human experience of being overwhelmed in that. But I know there's a huge opportunity at the end of it as well. But I guess it's not trying to sit in the chaos for too long because that's what a lot of people do. And then everything just breaks down.
Mm. My tangent found its conclusion. So for 2 years I wanted to work with the goddess because I wanted to integrate my feminine more. And I was looking at all of these amazing platforms that women would be initiated into the darker energies and archetypes because I wanted to be an archetype photographer. So how can I photograph women in the archetypes if I don't know how to express them in my body first? It felt like I was out of integrity doing my job because I want to integrate all energies, not just photograph the ones I'm comfortable with. You know what I mean? So then I'd have initiations into various weird modalities that way. But what happened to me is I realized my receptivity and surrender and intuition meant that those gods and goddesses started to call out to me to be worked with. And the best metaphor I can give for that is the energy of desire when you're in a sexual experience. So the way it's been taught to me is when you're in this self-pleasure practice, don't touch your body the way you want to touch it. Let the body touch you. Let the consciousness of your body trust it enough that it touches you exactly the way it was always going to touch you, because that's the unfoldment. Yeah. So I can't force and penetrate my way into the moment without sort of breaking it in that context. So I found a lot of surrender then meant I could work with these darker energies. But I wasn't ready beforehand because I was like knocking on all these doors of all these empowered women leaders. I'm like, how do I work with the goddess? It's like, you don't like, how do I do the feminine mysteries? It's like, you don't do it, you be it, you embody it. You can't do it. You
love that.
Yeah, they're like, you can't do it, you dickhead. And I just keep getting rejected in every message. And I was so sincere. I was just like, come on, ladies, like, help. I'm ready now. And it's like, evidently you're not, because you're not doing it. You know what I mean? It's the same with plant medicine. Like if it's Aya, for example, I haven't done it yet because I've been really patient, but she calls you. And it comes from reverence and respect that the grandmother, like the master healer of plants, wants to work with you, not you're just like running in and ready and you just pluck it and take it and hope stuff goes well. There's a lot of respect and reverence and slowness and devotion and honoring that has come with this. And I'm prefacing that after I've said it all, because I've just shared a lot of the learnings that I've had from like 3 years and thousands of dollars of work. And some of this might not resonate with some people, and some people may be offended that I've shared so intimately and deeply some of my learnings too, because some of these come from like lineages where you don't share this stuff because people aren't ready to hear it. It's like, yeah. And I've just been this big open mouth that's just spouting all this shit from like 17 different lineages out here. And maybe some of it's landed and maybe some of it hasn't. And just choose to take on what serves you and leave the rest. Some of it might enter your subconscious and sit there and just be a fun story. Like when I talked about Osiris and having a gold penis, maybe that's all it was for you, just a funny little anecdote.
Yeah, I love that what you said there too, man. Like, and that's why it's like half the reason why I started this podcast, so I can start to get honest with what's really going on. Because it's like, yeah, some people might not resonate with it now, but then they'll go back and listen to it in 2 years, and then they start resonating with them. That's a lot of stuff that I found in myself. Is like, I heard some of this stuff way back, even in like teenagehood, being a teenager, and now that I'm relearning it now, and I'm like, oh, now it's making sense. It's because it's been there subconsciously, but it's just like I wasn't ready to dive deep on it, and that's the whole reason why I guess one of the reasons why I created this platform is so then people can share different modalities, and then people can think, creating those doors and that, and start thinking differently. So then, new opportunities come, and then they can start healing themselves as well.
Absolutely.
But yeah, man, before we wrap it up, man, where all your social medias and where people can find you and that, and also we'll plug your website since it's just launched. So that's exciting.
Amazing. Give me 15 seconds just because I haven't shared it before. I'm just making sure what I share now is what the address is actually called, because it's a good opportunity.
Yeah, I'll link it all below as well.
Great. So, all right, here we go. My name is Matthew Watkins. To make it really easy, my Instagram is Matthew A. Watkins, because my middle name is Austin. Yeah. So that's my Insta, at Matthew A. Watkins. And then my website is www.matthewawatkins.com. Quite simple little match up to the Insta to the website. And it's in both my Facebook and my Instagram bios. You can just click on the link and literally press the services tab. And yeah, like Mitch isn't lying now that you'll press services and there'll be a million modalities. You just press the button, it'll just keep going down. You'll be like, holy fuck. Like just keep scrolling for 24 hours and you might uncover something exciting in there. Like it ranges anywhere from an energy healing, like we mentioned, to a more mindset based session, NLP, somatic sexology, a photo shoot with paint, a course, cacao, whatever the fuck you want. So yeah, there's a lot in there.
Yeah, with everyone that's listening, I suggest go check it out, because there probably will be a modality for you since there's so many out there. But yeah, and last question, man. What is the legacy you want to create?
I definitely spoke into two of the things. So healing modality. I want to run retreats. I see a female counterpart helping me in that regard eventually, like the masculine and feminine integration. And I'm not outsourcing that until that happens. I can't do anything in the meantime. So but like I want to do photo shoot retreats as well. So people come in with all these limiting beliefs, like I don't look good in photos. And then it's a whole retreat where you kind of don't do anything because you just get to relax, which is nice. And then in the process, all your dormant beliefs start rising because you're looking at other people that are kind of looking hot and really owning their shit. And it's like, fuck, my stuff's coming up. And you've just got me and a few others who are trained in every modality in the world, it seems. And whatever comes up, we can just move it. And then you're photographed in your most empowered, beautiful self. And it's like, holy shit, I look good. And then that's you leaving with all these business shots that have you in your perfect energetic state, because it's a medicine journey somewhat of like, I've come in disempowered and I've left feeling amazing. I want to speak on large stages. I see Tony Robbins size stages offering this healing modality where people can't refute it anymore. Like I've done it on the stage and they're like, that was magic. And I'm like, cool. Yeah. Refute that, bitch. Like like people have done magic on stages before, and it's like, but it's just it's pushed under the rug. That's what I want at the end of this stuff, at the end of this COVID, that people like can't argue with the fact that the world's fucking changed now. Like you can stay in your box, but we've moved. And yeah, it's great. Hey, I'm sure it'll shift and move as my life progresses. I'm 27, but yeah, really retreat home that I live in, that I offer retreats out of to balance masculine, feminine energies, speaking on big stages, stopping the next round of rapists, speaking in schools. And I want to do all these things. So I hope I find effective ways to do that.
Man, I am super excited to see all this stuff come to fruition or like come into reality because I've got a strong feeling it's going to because I'm buzzing at the moment. Best way to explain it. It's just like that little, but yeah, it's definitely going to come true soon, and it's something we all need. The world needs, and the world needs you, like your gifts, what you're offering, and that. So yeah, thank you for coming on, man. It was, it was a fun conversation. We went in so many different directions, which I'm gonna have to sit back and listen back to this conversation because I've learned a lot too.
Me too. Yeah. Thanks for your time. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, more than welcome, man.
Thank you.
Cheers for tuning in today's podcast today, guys. If you think anyone would get any value from it, share with a friend or a family member or anything like that. Let us know what you think in the comment section below or through social media or anything like that. Also too, now that I'm now qualified to do access bars and Reiki, so if you're up on the sunny coast, feel free to reach out for a session. I'll have all this stuff linked up on my website shortly, and yeah, but other than that, hope you enjoyed today's episode.